We're going to be looking at Incoterms. Incoterms are international commercial terms which we used in international trade. Primarily, they are set up by International Chamber of Commerce to define and clarify each parties within the trade, their responsibilities with regard to the costs and transport, freight costs, insurance costs, and so on. We're going to go through each one of them one at a time and see it. It depends to type of business you are doing. You usually would use one or two of these types of trade. Now, if we're gonna, let me just get the slide right. Now, primarily the Incoterms are looking at where the goods would be delivered, who is arranging the transportation. You can see them on the board here. Who is responsible for insuring the goods, who pays for the insurance, who handles the custom procedures either way, and who pays the duties and taxes and so on. So to make sure both parties understand there is no disputes, the International Chamber of Commerce has come up with these specific terms, which we're going to go through them one by one. Now, I've got this image here, which actually shows all the different possibilities of Incoterms. I'm going to start with, if you look at the factory, that's where the goods, are initialized. I mean, that they're produced there and they're going to be moving from there. And at the end is, let's say, the retailer or the importer warehouse where the goods going to end up. Yeah, and there's a border somewhere in the middle we're going to cross. It can be a sea border or it can be a land border. Now, the simplest one is what we call Ex Works. Now, Ex Works, it's we say Ex Works Istanbul, Ex Work Singapore. That means the buyer would load the goods from the seller's warehouse or factory, wherever the goods are ready to be loaded. The seller's responsibility here is to have the goods ready for loading. Now, in a scenario like Ex Works, all the obligations are on the buyer, because once he pick up the goods from the seller's shipyard or the seller's factory, he is responsible for, or she is responsible for, all the other costs and insurance and whatever, the export licenses, the import duties, and so on. So that's what we call Ex Work. So we can see that on this graphic sort of thing, you will see that at the factory door is a EXW, which stands for Ex Work. Now, the next type, remember, as we're going along, we are shifting some of the responsibilities from the exporter to the from the importer to the exporter. Now, the FCA, the free carrier followed with a name, free carrier at the place of a delivery. In this case, I think you can see the FCA, you see a lorry here. That means the exporter would bring the goods to the forwarding company, to the transport company of the exporter. So he will bring it to the buyer's designated carrier at a defined destination within the country of origin. So that's a FCA. The next one we're going to look at is, and remember, from that point onwards, the cost is with the exporter. So the next one is Cpd, is a carriage paid to a destination. If you look at on our graphic representation, you see the Cpd now is taking the goods all the way forward to the destination. So the destination port, it says the seller pays. Now here the seller is paying the carriage as well, from moving up to the other side of the border, but not the duties and the import duties and so on. The next one is CIP, the carriage and insurance. in a maritime sort of transport, we refer to it as the carriage and insurance is Cfr. Now here the seller would not only pay the carriage to get it from his factory to the destination port, also would pay the insurance of the goods. The CIP is the insurance, paid insurance. Then the DAT, the DAT, is a delivered at the terminal. The name terminal or port, DAT Liverpool, DAT Folkestone, DLT Singapore. That means the seller would pay the carriage to the terminal, except the costs related to the import duties of the destination. Yeah. So assumes all the risk prior to the point that the goods are handed over to the buyer's transport agents, which are going to take the goods from the terminal onwards. The DAP is delivered at a place, is again now going a bit further forward. The DAP is taking the goods near to the buyer, and it does the local carriage as well. Assume the risk of all the risk with this contract up to the point of handing it over to the buyer at their location. Now, finally, the DDP is a delivered duty paid. Now, DDP is all the way to the buyer, to their warehouse, and you pay the carriage, you pay the local cost of transportation, you pay the insurance associated with it, you do the clearing through the custom, you pay the taxes, and so on. Most of the time, when we call the other name for it, which is not the intercom term, is a FIS, the free in store. Now, let's say most of people which they buy on internet, let's say I'm a buyer on internet, I'm ordering the goods, and I expect it to be delivered at my place, being my shop or my home, and the goods are coming from China or somewhere else. The seller would see all those carriage costs, insurance costs, the duties to import the goods here, the custom duties, the local taxations. They do all of that, and you paid in one lump sum, and you expected to get it at home. The goods arrive at you. So that's called DDP, which is, as you see on this graphic representation, is all the way to your warehouse, to your shop, or to your home. Now, if the goods are shipped by in sea or in inland waterways, then we have got a few other terminologies which is in use. The first one is FAS, is free alongside ship. Now, this is for bulky goods, so it's not for every kind of good. That means the seller should bring the goods in the port by the side of the ship to be ready to be loaded. So from that point onwards is the buyer's responsibility. The term which probably everybody has heard before is a FOB, which is free on board. Now here the seller agrees to pay the cost of everything associated with transporting the goods to the port and loading the goods on the ship or on the plane or wherever it is going, and so going to a certain destination. The seller must load the goods, is pay the cost up to the loading, he pays including the loading, but the freight and others are not his responsibility, or her responsibility, to be correct. Now, the next one is Cfr Cost and Freight, which the formerly known as CNF, Cost and Freight. Now, the Cost and Freight, that means we do it like FOB, we go all the way on board, and also we pay the cost of carriage, the freight, for shipment of the goods to the destination. So if you are somebody quoting you a price for let's say a piece of equipment, large equipment, and they say FOB in Istanbul or FOB in Singapore, price is so much, that means the goods, including everything, the cost of goods itself, plus packaging and loading it on board of your vessel, is X $1,000. and then you say, I want a CNF price as well. They say the CNF price, they take the FOB price and add the freight charges to your destination. So when you say FOB, you say FOB, let's say Istanbul, because the goods are in Turkey, or FOB, another port in Turkey. And then you say CNF, usually the CNF has got a destination port associated to it. So say CNF Liverpool, that means delivered, the price include the carriage delivered to Liverpool. So CNF has got a CNF a port, which is a destination port. FOB has got a port, which is the original of the place where the goods are coming from. Next one is, the probably last one is the CIF, the cost, insurance, and freight. The same, you got the FOB price, which is the price on the origin port on board. Then you have got the CNF, which is the price including the freight charges to destination of the goods. And the CIF is take the CNF price, add the insurance, and that becomes CIF. That means the seller is paying for insurance, for carriage, for loading, unloading to the final destination port, plus the insurance. So that's a CNF price. Now, you've seen these on the graph, and the full definition of all these on your course page. Also, I've included on the course page a table which goes through all of these and is allocating who is responsible for the cost of different elements, being documentation, freights, insurance, loading, unloading, local transportation, and so on. So if you go on your course page, you will see a table which is defining exactly who is responsible for what cost. I hope it's not very confusing. It's just some terminologies, and you have to just learn them and understand what they are. Thank you very much. See you later.